Sweetheart, it's a costume. My mother-in-law said that with a serving spoon in her hand. There were 30 people in her dining room. Maybe more. Some of us had husbands who actually went. They laughed. Not cruelly, that's the part I need you to hear. 6 days later, a colonel stood on a reviewing stand and said my name into a microphone. He said it slow, and then he came to attention. To understand how those two rooms fit together, I have to go back 9 years. My name is Dana. I was 44 that fall. I'd been in the Army 23 years by then. I enlisted at 21. I move pallets. That is the whole job. I've said it that way since I was a private, and it has never once failed me. Somebody asks what I do. I say I move pallets. They nod, and we talk about the weather. It isn't a lie either. There are pallets, and there is moving. Here's the long version, and nobody has ever wanted it. Somebody has to decide what goes on the airplane, and in what order. Somebody has to know that fuel and water and bullets and mail all fight for the same floor. Somebody has to make the plan hold when the weather turns and the road washes out. That takes 40 minutes and a map. So I say pallets. We were at Fort Liberty in North Carolina. Brick house 4 streets off post. Neil sold farm equipment. He was good at it, and he was home by 6 most nights. Our daughter Hazel was 7 that year. She had a gap in her front teeth and no volume control. Remember that last part because it matters later. Neil's mother is Verna. She was 11 minutes from us, and she cooked for everybody. I want to be fair to her, because the rest of this isn't going to be. Verna fed half that county. She sat with people in hospitals. She drove a woman from her church to her treatments for 2 years and never told a soul about it. She also decided in the first month she knew me exactly what I was. This is Neil's wife, she'd say. She does the paperwork end of it. 9 years. Same 11 words. Every table, every new face. I never corrected her. Not one time. At the first Christmas after our wedding, her sister asked about me across the kitchen. What is it Dana does? She's Army. Oh, like Del. Not like Del. So what does she do? Supply. Supply. She works in an office out there. It's steady. That's good for a family. It is. She's never really been anywhere. I was 4 feet away with a plate of ham in my hand. My face went hot, and I didn't say anything. I ate the ham. Del is Verna's brother. Del went overseas at 19 and came home with a Purple Heart and a limp he still has. In that family, Del is what the word service means. 1 yardstick and Del is it. I understood that, and most days I agreed with it. Here's how a thing like this starts. At our wedding, somebody asked what I did, and I said, supply. That was true. It was also the short version, and short versions harden. 2 years in Verna could say her sentence without thinking about it. 4 years in other people were saying it back to her. By year 6, it wasn't an opinion anymore. It was a fact about me, like my hair being brown. I could have walked in there with 40 minutes and a map. I never did. And I want to be honest with you about why. Correcting a person costs more than the insult does. So you let it go by. Then you let it go by again. Then it's 9 years later. I wasn't a hero about it. I was tired. There was one winter I never talked about at that table. Not because it was a secret from them. Because it was a secret. 2 outposts up in the mountains and 1 road in. The road went out in November. The people in those 2 places needed food and fuel and medicine for 11 weeks. I built the thing that got it to them. That's all I could say out loud for 9 years. 2 outposts, 11 weeks. At the end of it, my battalion commander came into the tent where I worked. Major Ochoa. Short man, quiet. Drank his coffee black and cold. You know what you did up there. Sir, there's a packet going up on you. Yes, sir. It'll be a while. The file it hangs on is sealed. Yes, sir. Dana. He waited until I looked up. A while means a while. I said, yes, sir, because that's what you say. Then I went back to my load plans. Nothing ever came. I checked the mail for it the first year and less the second year. By the third year, I'd quit checking. You can carry a thing like that for exactly as long as somebody else is willing to carry it with you. After that, it just starts to get heavy on you. Then I met Neil at a wedding in Fayetteville, and none of it mattered anymore. That's what I thought. For 9 years, that is exactly what I thought. Verna's table seated 14, and she used all 14 every Sunday. Dinner was at 1 o'clock, and we were there at 12:45 for 9 years. Dana, honey, sit down there by the kids. Same chair every week at the foot of the table next to the high chair. It's a small thing, but I'm telling you because small things stack the same as big ones. The first fall we were married, the church had a potluck in the fellowship hall. A woman with a casserole dish cornered me by the coffee urn. You must be Mrs. Pruitt. One of them. Verna says you work out on the post. I do. In the offices there. Something like that. My nephew's out there. He drives a forklift. It's a good job. It is. Steady. Steady? In 9 years, I don't believe one person in that church used a different word about me. The push to quit started in year 3. The bank in town is hiring tellers. I have a job, Verna. You have a schedule. There's a difference. Mama, Neil said. I'm only saying it out loud. Somebody should. She said it out loud about twice a year after that. She had a version she liked, where the army was a thing I hadn't gotten around to leaving yet. It was fine before Hazel. It's fine now. You'll see. Then there was the business about the money. Verna and Neil's father had put $11,000 into our down payment. She never asked for a dollar of it back. She also never let a room forget it. We helped them with that house. You did, I'd say. Neil works hard. He does. It's steady work. I quit counting how many times I agreed out loud with things that weren't questions. By year 5, her sentence had grown a little. She does payroll out there. I have never done payroll, not once, and not for one day. A man at a graduation party shook my hand about it. You're the one who fixes it when the check comes out wrong. That's not really me. Well, somebody's got to do it. Somebody does. Neil heard that one, and he got quiet in the car. Why don't you tell them? Tell them what? What you actually do. They'd hear supply and stop listening at supply. You don't know that. Neil, I've watched it happen at your mother's table 11 times. He didn't have anything for that, so he turned the radio on. I want to be careful here because Neil isn't the villain of this. Neil is a man who loved his mother and married a woman his mother had already filed away. He did what a lot of good men do. He waited for it to get better on its own. Meanwhile, I was going to work every single day. I ran the movement plan for a brigade that year. 1,100 short tons out the door in 9 days. Nobody at that Sunday table asked me one question about it. I never brought it up either, so we were even. There was one Sunday I nearly did it. Somebody's cousin was home from basic training, and the whole table wanted to hear about it. He talked about the sand pit and the drill sergeants, and everybody loved it. Then he looked down the table at me. Ma'am, were you ever out there? The room went quiet, in a friendly way, waiting for me to say no. I've been a few places. Anywhere good? Cold, mostly. Verna laughed and passed the beans, and that was the end of that. I could have said one more sentence. I've thought about that Sunday more than any other one. It embarrassed me to sit there. That's worse than being hurt, and it lasts longer. Hazel was 4 the first time she said it. Her preschool sent home a page. Draw where your family works. She drew a brown box with a window and a stick figure inside it. That's Mommy's office. It is. Grandma says you work at the office. Grandma's right, Bug. Neil looked at me over her head, and I shook mine at him. I put that drawing on the refrigerator under a magnet shaped like a peach. It stayed up there 2 years, and I looked at it every single morning. That was the year I decided none of it mattered. I was wrong about that. It took me 5 more years to find out how wrong. Verna ran the Veterans Day service at her church. She'd run it for 19 years. Same order every time, with the flag up front a hymn, then the calling. The pastor asked every veteran in the building to stand, and the ushers walked a small flag pin down every row. Then 400 people clapped until the last one sat back down. The fellowship hall down the stairs smells like coffee and floor wax. It has smelled that way since before I got there. There's a bulletin board by that door with photographs of the men from that church who served. 19 faces in cheap black frames going back to Korea. I walked past it every Sunday for 9 years. I never once thought my face belonged on it. I want to be clear about that. I did think somebody might ask me about that wall. Nobody ever did. The week before my 6th Veterans Day there, Verna called me on a Thursday. I want to ask you something. Take it the right way. All right. Sunday, when they call folks up. Yes, ma'am. I'd rather you sat. There was a plate in my hand. I set it down in the sink. All right. It isn't to be ugly. It's for the ones who went. Dell and them. I understand. I knew you would. She was warm about it. And that's the part people never believe. She wasn't sneering at me over the phone. She was relieved. She thought she'd handled a delicate thing well, and she had a right to think so. That Sunday came around bright and cold and windless. An usher handed me a program at the door. Morning, Mrs. Pruitt. Morning. Hazel sat on my lap because the pew was full. The pastor made the call. Dell stood up 2 rows ahead of us. 12 or 13 others stood with him. The clapping went on a long time. Hazel turned around in my lap and put her hand flat on my collarbone. Mommy, you go up too. Not this year, Bug. Why not? Sit down, sweetheart. She sat down, and she kept looking up at me the whole rest of the song. I want to tell you I was angry. Anger is clean, and I'd have taken anger. What I felt was small, and that's the honest word for it. I felt small in a room full of people I like. Neil found out in the car. Did she ask you not to stand? She asked. And you sat. I sat. He pulled into the gravel at the edge of the lot and put it in park. Dana, don't. I'm going back in there. For what? For you, Neil. She'll say she asked me a question, and that I answered it. He went back in, and that is exactly what she said. He told me on the drive home, and he had the decency to be embarrassed. My chest ached the whole way. It ached for him too, which annoyed me. There was a potluck after. I went because leaving would have been a statement. A woman handed me a foil pan on my way through the kitchen. Mrs. Pruitt, would you carry the green beans out? Yes, ma'am. So I carried green beans out to a table of veterans with flag pins on their coats. I set the pan down and Dell said thank you. I said you're welcome. After that, the story got out ahead of me, and I couldn't have caught it if I'd tried. At the hardware store, a man thanked Neil for Dell's service, then turned to me. And bless you for supporting them. Thank you. That's what I said. Thank you. I could have fixed the whole thing with one sentence in that church. I want you to remember that I could have. I want you to remember that I didn't. What finally moved me wasn't the church, or the potluck, or the man at the hardware store. It was a piece of poster board. Hazel's 2nd grade class did a unit on people who serve. Every child picked somebody in the family and made a poster about them. Hazel picked me at the kitchen counter on a Tuesday, and I about came apart. I want to do you. Yeah. You have the jacket with the stripes. That's a uniform bug. I know. Can I use the picture of you with the boxes? There's a photograph of me on a loading ramp with about 40 bundles behind me. It's the only one I keep out. She'd been looking at it her whole life. You can use whatever you want. I was proud of her and sick to my stomach at the same time. I couldn't have told you why. Verna kept Hazel on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That was our arrangement, and it was a gift. The poster came home 2 weeks later in a plastic bag. It was beautiful, with gold letters and cotton balls glued along the top for clouds. It was about Dell. Grandma helped me. I see that. She said we needed a real one. A real what, Bug? A real one who went. Neil was standing at the sink, and he shut the water off. She said your picture was nice, but it was just boxes. I said that's all right. I said Uncle Dell deserved a poster. I put it on the refrigerator, under the peach magnet, over the top of the preschool drawing. At conferences that spring, the teachers shook my hand. Mrs. Pruitt Hazel's poster was one of my favorites. Thank you. Your uncle sounds like a remarkable man. He's my husband's uncle. Oh. That was the whole conversation, and she moved on to test scores. It got worse at dinner 3 weeks later, and it got worse, fast. We were at Verna's for pot roast, with 9 of us at the table. Hazel was going on about a boy in her class whose father flies helicopters. His dad went to a war. That's something, Neil said. Mommy didn't go to a war. Bug. Grandma says you didn't really go. The fork stopped. Not all at once. One at a time, which is worse. Neil put his hand flat on the table. Mama. Verna folded her napkin. She wasn't rattled in the slightest. Well, she didn't, did she? Mama, stop. I'm not going to lie to a child, Neil. My stomach dropped straight through that chair and kept going. I said, Hazel, eat your carrots, and she ate her carrots. I went out on the back steps afterward. Neil came out behind me with 2 glasses of tea. Say something. 1 sentence. That's all it would take. I can't. Can't or won't? Both. Explain that to me. There's a file, Neil. It's sealed. That's the whole explanation, and I know how it sounds. He sat down next to me on the step and didn't say anything for a while. How long has it been sealed? 9 years. How long do they stay sealed? As long as they stay sealed. The porch light had a moth going at it. It kept hitting the bulb and falling and going back up, and I sat there and watched it do that. Nothing about my life was going to change. I had decided that on the steps that night. Then, that October, the phone rang at my desk. Ma'am, Sergeant First Class Mabry, Post Protocol Office. Go ahead, Sergeant. Ma'am, I've got a packet with your name on it for the fall recognition ceremony. What do you need moved? Ma'am, for the ceremony. Chairs, stands, pallets. Tell me what you need and when. There was a pause on that line I didn't think a thing about at the time. Ma'am, I just need to verify a name. Pruitt, Dana, Lorraine. Is that right? That's right. And your assignment the winter you were overseas. That's a ways back, Sergeant. Yes, ma'am. I've got it in front of me. I have to hear it from you. I gave it to him, and he typed while I talked. Thank you, ma'am. That's all I need from you. Sergeant, what is this? Ma'am, I'm building a program. That's all I'm authorized to say. I hung up and went back to a load plan. I didn't think about that phone call again for 11 days. The order came down on paper, which almost never happens anymore. Report to the parade field the first Wednesday of December, 1300. Dress uniform, front rank. I stood in the hallway outside my office and looked at it twice. Front rank means you aren't working the ceremony. Front rank means you're in it. Neil got home at 6 and I handed it to him. Since when do you wear the blues to move chairs? I don't. So what is it? I don't know. You have to know something. Neil, I'm telling you, I don't. Hazel wanted to see the jacket. I got it out of the garment bag in the spare room. She stood on the bed and touched the ribbons one at a time and asked what each one was for. I told her the truth about 4 of them, which is that they're for showing up. What about that one? That one's for being somewhere cold. Which one's for the boxes? There isn't one for the boxes, Bug. She thought about that, and then she went back to touching the ribbons. I got the blues altered that Monday at a shop on Bragg Boulevard. The woman doing the pinning asked what the occasion was. I honestly don't know. Well, that's a first. She let the waist out a 1/4 inch and told me I stood too straight for a fitting. That's a whole sentence somebody said to me, and it stayed with me for 6 days. The envelope came that Friday in the afternoon mail. Plain white, with a return address out of a file branch I'd never had cause to write to. Neil was standing right there when I opened it. One paragraph, and most of the middle of it was blacked out in solid bars. "That's it," he said. "That's the whole letter." That's the whole letter. 2 lines were clean. One had my name spelled out in full. The other one said a portion of the file had been downgraded. Downgraded. Not opened. Not released. Downgraded. What does that mean? It means somebody is allowed to say part of it out loud. Which part? That's the part they blacked out. Neil laughed. It came out of him wrong, only half a laugh. Dana, are you kidding me? I'm not. I put the letter on the counter, and we both looked at it like it might do something else. Then I called the protocol office, and it was after 4, but Mabry picked up anyway. "Sergeant, what's on that program?" "Ma'am, I'm not the one who gets to tell you." "Who is—" "He'll be there Wednesday, ma'am." "He." "Yes, ma'am." "Sergeant." "Ma'am, I've had this desk 6 years. I need you to trust me for 6 more days." I said, "All right, Sergeant." He said, "Thank you, ma'am," and he hung up. Relief went through me, and then curiosity ate the relief in about a minute. I was scared too, and I couldn't have told you of what. Somebody called the house the next morning about seating. "Is this Mrs. Pruitt?" "It is." "Ma'am, you're authorized 4 family seats. Do you want all 4? 4 seats. Neil, Hazel, and 2. I sat down on the arm of the couch with the phone at my ear and said nothing for a good 5 seconds. "Give me 3, I said. Then I called Neil and told him what I'd done, and my husband, who was not a hard man, got hard about it. "She's my mother. I know who she is. Dana. If you keep her home over this, that's the end. That's forever." Maybe it should be. Not for Hazel, it shouldn't. That's the sentence that beat me. It's still the sentence that beats me. I called the woman back and took the 4th seat. Then Thanksgiving came, and for about 4 hours I forgot the whole thing. Verna cooked for 2 days and set 30 places. She used the long table and 2 folding tables and the piano bench. There was a turkey and there was a ham, because there is always a turkey and a ham. The house smelled like sage, and like cigarette smoke off the back porch, and it was warm enough that the windows fogged from the inside. Dell got the chair with arms on it. Dell always got that chair. Somebody's boyfriend shook my hand at the door. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Pruitt." "Dana's fine." We got through the blessing and the first plate, and it was good. I want that in here too. Verna's dressing is the best food I have ever eaten, and I've told her so. Then Neil's cousin asked what we had going on before Christmas. "Not much. Dana's got a thing at the post next week." "What kind of thing?" "Some ceremony. She has to wear the dress uniform." Half that long table turned to look at me. "Ooh, the dress uniform. Do you have to wear the hat?" "There's a hat," Hazel said, "and a jacket with stripes." That's when Verna came around the corner with a spoon. She wasn't angry. She had her apron on. She was in a good mood. "Sweetheart, it's a costume." Then she said the other part. "Some of us had husbands who actually went." They laughed. You have to understand how that laugh sounded, because it wasn't mean. It was the laugh a room gives an old woman who's being a character. It was affectionate. 12 or 14 people I like laughed at a joke about me and went back to their plates. Heat went up my face and stopped at my hairline and sat there. I felt about 2 inches tall. It hurt worse than the church did, and the church had been bad. Dell didn't laugh. Dell looked at his plate and kept looking at it. I passed the rolls to my left, because the rolls were sitting in front of me. "Mommy, what's a costume?" "Eat your dinner, bug." We stayed another hour, and I helped with the dishes. I dried, Verna washed. We talked about her hip and about the church van. Neil got us out to the car and shut both doors and sat there without starting it. That was ugly. It was a joke. It was ugly, Dana. He called her from our driveway. I heard one side of it. Mama, that was ugly. Because it was. because she was standing right there. He was quiet a long while, and then he said, "All right," and hung up. She says she was joking. I know she was. That's worse. I know it is. Hazel was asleep in the back with a roll in her fist. 6 days. I had 6 days, and I didn't know what for. The first Wednesday of December came in cold and bright and hard blue. I put the blues on in my own kitchen at 9 in the morning. Hazel sat on the counter and watched me do the tie. "You look like the pictures at church." "Do I?" "The ones by the stairs." I didn't have anything to say to that, so I fixed her collar instead of answering. Verna wanted everybody at her house for soup at 11. Of course she did. So I sat at that same table, in that same dining room, in my dress uniform, and ate her chicken soup. She was lovely to me, and that's the thing about her. "You look nice, honey. I mean that." "Thank you." "That collar suits you." "Thank you." Then she carried my dish to the kitchen and said the other thing over her shoulder. "Don't let them make a fuss over you." I don't believe anybody's making a fuss. Somebody's got to hand out the certificates. It's nice they let you help. I looked down at the tablecloth. It was the one with the little brown leaves on it. "Yes, ma'am." We drove out to the post at noon behind Verna's car the whole way. The parade field at Fort Liberty is bigger than people expect it to be. There were maybe 400 folding chairs on the family side, and most of them were full. The wind came across that field all afternoon with nothing at all to slow it down. I fell in at the front rank at 12:40 and stood there for 20 minutes. Neil found the seats. Verna sat on the aisle with her good coat buttoned to the throat. Hazel had a candy cane somebody had handed her at the gate. The first part went the way those things always go. 26 soldiers got called out. A sergeant made staff sergeant. 2 units got streamers. A specialist got a coin for pulling a man out of a car on Yadkin Road. Everybody clapped in the right places, and the wind took most of it away. Then the program stopped. There wasn't anything on the sheet after the last name they'd called. I know that, because I'd seen the sheet. Somebody in my shop had helped print the sheet. A man came up the steps to the microphone with a folder in his hand. Silver hair, and shorter than everybody standing around him. 9 years is a long time, and I knew him before he got to the top step. "Good afternoon," he said. "Most of you don't know me. I don't work here." He let that sit out there for a second. 9 years ago, I was a major. I had a warrant officer working for me. I wasn't allowed to talk about her. Something went through the front rank. Nobody moved. It went through anyway. My throat shut, and I had to work to get a breath around it. This morning I can talk about her. Not all of it. Enough. He opened the folder and put both hands on it. "Attention to orders." Everybody in uniform on that field came to attention at once. 200 and some pairs of boots. You feel that more than you hear it. The Bronze Star Medal is awarded to the following soldier. Chief Warrant Officer 3 Dana Lorraine Pruitt, United States Army. My name went out across 400 chairs and came back off the bleachers behind them. For meritorious achievement during the winter of that year. In a place this citation is not going to name. She planned and ran the aerial resupply of 2 isolated outposts. 11 consecutive weeks. The ground route was cut in November. It stayed cut. She built every load plan by hand. She rebuilt them each night the weather turned. The weather turned almost every night. 240 soldiers ate and stayed warm. They got their medicine. That happened because of the way one person stacked an airplane. Nobody wrote a word about it at the time. Nobody was permitted to. He set the paper down on the stand. He didn't need the rest of it. That award was approved 9 years ago this month. The file it hung on was sealed. It was downgraded in October. That's nobody's fault. That is simply how a sealed file works. But I'd like the family section to hear this next part. Some of you have been told this soldier pushes paper. She does. That is exactly what she does. The paper is the reason 2 outposts full of people came home. There is no version of that winter where those people walk out. Not without her. Then he said my name again, the short way. Chief Warrant Officer Pruitt, front and center. I don't remember the walk. I've tried. I remember the grass being harder than it looked. He handed me the citation in a frame, and then he stepped back. Then a colonel came to attention and saluted me. There is no rule that makes a colonel do that. He doesn't owe a warrant officer a salute. He did it anyway. And he held it long enough that the holding was the whole point. I returned it. My hand was steady, which surprised me then and surprises me now. Pride hit me sideways out there, and I had nothing to catch it with. Neil was crying in the third row. I wasn't. I have never been able to explain that part to anybody, myself included. And then in the quiet part, right after my 7-year-old asked her father a question, she didn't whisper it. She has never whispered anything in her life. Daddy, why does Grandma keep saying Mommy never went anywhere? I told you at the beginning about the volume control. 400 people heard it. The microphone was still hot and it caught the tail of it. Verna was sitting 11 inches away from her. Nobody laughed that time. Quiet. I looked over at the family section exactly once. I'm not proud of it. I looked. Verna had both hands flat in her lap and her chin up and her eyes straight ahead. She held that. And she held it the whole rest of the ceremony. Sergeant First Class Mabry was standing at the bottom of the steps with the empty folder. He caught my eye when I went past him on my way back to the rank. "Ma'am," he said. That was all he said. 6 days he had carried that, and he never once let it slip on the phone. They broke the formation at 2:10. The family side came down onto the grass all at once, and the field turned into a crowd. Neil had Hazel up on his hip. Somebody's mother was hugging somebody's son. I told Neil I needed a minute, and he knew enough to take her off to find a bathroom. So I walked out to the north edge of that parade field by myself. The chairs were still up behind me and their rows empty now. One of them tipped over in the wind. I stood at the edge of the field in my dress uniform and held the framed citation flat against my chest with both arms. The glass was cold straight through the jacket. The wind pushed at my hat and I put a hand up on it. My eyes stayed dry, and they stayed dry the whole afternoon. Relief came in late, and it came in heavy the way it does when you've been braced for 9 years. It took a man with a microphone about 4 minutes to turn me into somebody who went. Nothing on that page had changed. It had said the same thing the entire time. It just wasn't allowed to say it out loud. And neither was I. The colonel found me out there a few minutes after that. You never asked about it? No, sir. 9 years. Not one query, not one letter. I checked. You told me a while meant a while, sir. He laughed, and it surprised both of us. Your daughter's got a set of lungs on her. Yes, sir, she does. Somebody in that section needed to hear that question. Yes, sir. They heard it. Verna came across the grass with Neil about 10 minutes later. She did not apologize. I want to be straight with you about that. She stopped 4 feet away and put her purse strap up on her shoulder. I didn't know. I know you didn't. You could have told me. No, ma'am. I couldn't. She opened her mouth, and then she shut it. That's the part that got in. Not the colonel, and not the salute. 9 years of being certain, and then a thing she wasn't allowed to have been told. I felt sorry for her out there on that grass, and I hadn't expected to. She nodded once and went to find the car. There was no scene. Nobody made her stand up in front of the family and take it back. I've thought a lot about whether I wanted that, and I don't believe I did. Being right in front of people is a one-time payment, and I'd already been paid. Neil didn't say much on the drive home, and he didn't turn the radio on either. He carried the frame in from the car and stood in the hallway with it for a while. 9 years. 9 years. You sat at that table every Sunday. I did. And you let her say it. I let her say it. He hung the frame that night, in the dark, with a level and a pencil. He got it crooked, and I have never once mentioned that to him. Hazel came into the kitchen later, in her pajamas still going strong from the field. Mommy, what's an airlift? It's when the road is gone and people still need to eat. So you drive the airplane. No, Bug. I decide what goes in it. Is that the same as being the boss? It's near enough for a Wednesday. She thought that was hilarious and went to bed still saying the word. The rest of it happened slow, the way real things do. A cousin called the next week and talked for 40 minutes and cried twice. A woman from the church sent a card with a flag on it and one line written inside. Verna never said the paperwork sentence again. Not once in 3 years. She also never took it back out loud, and I quit needing her to. Dell called me on a Saturday in January. Dell had never once called me in 9 years. 2 outposts. Yes, sir. 11 weeks. Yes, sir. Well, that was it. That was the whole call, and it was plenty. The church put a photograph up on that bulletin board in the spring. I didn't ask them to, and I found out about it from Hazel. Hazel is 10 now. The citation hangs by the back door, over the hook where the coats go. It isn't the nicest wall in the house. It's the only one everybody walks past. She brings her friends through there, and they stop because she stops. That's my mom. She stacked the airplanes. Airplane, I say from the kitchen. 1 at a time. She stacked all of them, Hazel says, and takes them out to the trampoline. I kept the 2nd grade poster. The one about Dell with the cotton balls on it. It's in the drawer under the silverware, and I have never once fixed it. Some things you leave the way they came to you. Verna comes on Sundays now. We do it at our house because her hip finally went. She brings a pie and takes the chair with the arms on it, and Hazel sits down beside her. Last month, a new neighbor came over, and Verna introduced me before I got across the room. This is Dana. She planned an airlift. That's how she says it now, flat, like she's giving you the weather. She has never once said it while looking at me. I quit needing that, too. Here's what I know now. A true thing can sit in a sealed drawer for 9 years and weigh nothing at all. It starts weighing something the day a person with a microphone says it out loud. That isn't fair, and it's just how people are built. So don't wait on a kernel. If somebody in your family has gone quiet about who they are, ask them for the long version. Sit through the 40 minutes. Sit through the map. They have been waiting a lot longer than 40 minutes. If this one meant something to you, share it with somebody who's been called just the paperwork. And if you'd like to sit through another story with me, subscribe and come back. I'd be glad to have you.